Welcome, one and all, to episode 99 of Peace Talk. This is the Peace Dealer, and happy Aries season. We're headed into the new moon very, very, very soon. And I'm kind of grateful we're on episode 99 of Peace Talk. Definitely heading to the three-figure mark, and we have a very special guest. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
And I just want to make sure I'm saying your name right. Is it Arden?
Yep, that's right. Arden Ariel. Yep.
Arden Ariel. That's amazing. I'm not gonna lie, I did get some angelic vibes from that. Yeah, I noticed recently that if you take both names, it's a AA, like Archangel. So, so, and you had sent me mail at like 4:44, which kind of like catered in, which is cool. But
that's fun.
Yeah, other than that, how have you been enjoying this Aries season and New Year?
It's been interesting. I will say I'm enjoying it a lot more than its predecessor. And just the shift into forward movement and forward momentum and a sense of fearlessness, despite the normal kind of drive to hide. I've noticed that that's been happening a lot lately. You may hear my little son in the background. Hi, Bubba. So for me especially, it's been about coming out into the open and really, this is Alexander. So we got another A here.
Hi, Alexander. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, he's offering you a lollipop. That's great. That's good. You got two? Wow, he's having a good time.
Yeah.
It's my little Aquarius there.
Okay.
So for me especially, it's been very much about standing in my own name and coming out into my own power, and that has manifested a lot with work. I've made some recent interesting moves, and it's felt very good. It's felt very led. And it's been kind of scary, but I feel like with this Aries season, there's been this bent of, okay, let's put some fearlessness on top of the fear and see what we settle out with. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing. How old is your son, by the way?
Oh, he's 3. Yeah, he's 3. He was born on Lunar New Year 3 years ago. He chose the date. He flipped around a few times and had to be born then. And yeah, he's a double Aquarius. So. Hi, Katie.
Okay.
You want to sit with us? That's cool. You can do that. That's fine. Just try to be a little quiet, okay? Thank you.
And how about your zodiac sign?
Me, I am a Scorpio sun, 0 degree Scorpio, Gemini rising, and Capricorn moon. So yes.
You're fun. Capricorn moon.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, I was gonna say so your son would be in the 6th house then as a Gemini.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he's an Aquarius. Oh, you mean for mine?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, your son's my bad.
Yeah, he's a double Aquarius with a Leo rising. So.
No, my bad. I meant your Scorpio son would be.
Oh yeah. Oh, my son. I thought you said my.
My bad. Yeah.
Fun stuff.
So that's awesome then, because it makes sense. Your website, which I have in the description below, which looks amazing, by the way.
Thanks.
Format. It's called Genuine Transformation. So seeing that you represent, transformation of the Scorpio, that's really awesome. Very great. And we're definitely going to speak on some of the services you offer, because I saw the soul retrieval there. That was really interesting. It's rare to find someone who's really good at that and can actually do that. But I totally resonate with what you mentioned, of course, with adding fearlessness over the fear and really stepping through. I really feel like, especially Scorpio reps like yourself, definitely leading the way forward because of Jupiter that just recently went over your sign. What was that? What was that like for you going through that evolution process?
That was sorry about that. That was interesting, we'll say, to in the least. My Alexander, please don't do that, my love. Okay?
Oh, sure.
Go back in there, okay? Thank you. He's gonging in here. It's great. So that was a pretty interesting time. And let's see, what was the time frame on that? Because that would have did that just end? I think that just ended for me. I'll give you a little preface. In the last year, I had been steadily growing my practice, but hiding out, just kind of showing up, doing my work, kind of allowing other people to kind of like funnel it in towards me. And it had an interesting effect to it because all I had to do was show up and be present. And there wasn't much stipulation on exactly what I was having to do. I didn't have to talk about myself. So it allowed me to really expand and deepen the practice that I had.
Okay.
And it very specifically being able to, that's when actually the soul retrieval part started to become more prominent in my work. Before it was mostly intuitive work. With this, it was, all right, let's go deeper. Let's really dive into this, dive into the subconscious, dive into the symbolic imagery of things and see what we come out with. And I found that just even like the beneficent Jupiter energy, the more that I would do this, the more that financial prosperity would come up around it. Yeah. And so it was creating this is what you're supposed to do. This is how you sustain yourself. If efforts that I had to move away from that and do more like technological work and just other things that I used to do to sustain myself, it would just immediately dry up. So it was this sense of like, this is where your bounty is. You are meant to do this. And it really was wonderful and just powerful to be able to explore that in its depth while I was in this sort of like enclosed space and not really having to talk about what I did that much. So yeah, it was transformative in a strange way.
Yeah. And Sagittarius, so expanding work. As a Capricorn moon, how have you been feeling into Pluto and Saturn?
Well, I'm kind of a fan of those guys.
Oh yeah.
So this is where my Capricorn moon is gonna come out. I prize austerity sometimes, and transformative experiences often have a death-like element to them, or a very austere element to them. And that can be so freeing in that if you can allow like the things that maybe you're comfortable but you're shielding yourself with to die away, you're left with this kind of like a more raw material, and you can just move into the next phase. So yeah, it's interestingly enough, just even with some of the ways, I'm not sure if it quite corresponds, but it is interesting to know in the last 3 years, I vastly transformed the way that I look. In that I lost about 136 pounds, a little more than that, in a couple of years' time. And it was part of that sort of like finding the joy in hard work, finding kind of an austerity, and Saturnian influence. So finding the joy in hard work
is I totally resonate with that.
Yeah, there's a weird sort of joy. I think that's our little bit of Capricorn in there, right? Yeah. It's like, there's no joy in austerity. What are you talking about? Like, no, there is. It's there. You can find it. So yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, totally. Having Pluto over the weekend just directly conjuncted my moon with the so definitely enjoying the shifts. It seems like everything's been a cumulative process to finally shifting gear and to focus on what's ready to die and be taken more serious too in that aspect.
Absolutely.
And then there's also growing up and growing older. What sign is your Saturn in?
Let me double check. I have most everything is in the 5th house, and I have both Libra and Scorpio in my 5th. Hold on, let me just pull it up. So I think that it's there. hold on. Yeah, yeah. Oh, Saturn. Yeah, Saturn's absolutely in my fifth house. It's not in Libra. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, so,
Here, take this.
Pluto and Saturn are squaring you right now. So
Mm-hmm.
this is actually really great because I noticed your soul group and generation is going through such incredible breakthrough of those themes that you were born with. So it's like
Yeah,
you're all having to redefine relationship constructs and like break
absolutely.
through. How has your experience been with that, especially as a Scorpio sun, because you
Mm-hmm.
can totally see into these psychological themes more than others, and it's really, I can imagine it's really difficult. A lot of people realizing the flaws in conventional marriage
Yeah.
labeling, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
how's that been?
It's been interesting. I was divorced in the last year, and that was also something. It was a long time coming, but right there was kind of a shift out of that, and I began another relationship shortly after that was very beautiful and fulfilling, and it still is, but it has taken many forms. It has shifted from romance into platonic friendship. It has
Okay.
maintained the beauty. It's maintained the sort of sustaining force that's in it, and has actually become more intimate.
Oh wow.
And that is, yeah, it's mind blowing in some senses just to feel um, supported and loved and cared for, even though initially, as a Scorpio and as a woman, it's almost sometimes that can hit you as an affront, almost as like an offensive thing of, well, why would we shift it from this into this? But really just allowing things to take the form that they need to has been a beautiful and joyful experience, and has been extremely profound for me. So that's a big, big shift, and in a wonderful way. It's really made me question a lot of how I was doing things before, and just approaching relationships and approaching the concepts of love, and how there was often a selfish and limited form in that, and now finding a freedom in that expansiveness, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, the whole concept of going from romantic to platonic to intimate, I would have never have thought.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. It almost makes a lot of sense. It's like really falling in love with the best friend in that sense.
Absolutely. It's very, very interesting. I think sometimes too, the pressures that we have around like the idea of romantic relationship can limit and keep people in a sort of track of expectation, or this is the role that I should play, and thus prevent real emotional intimacy. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Any type of transition occurring as like as this moves out of Capricorn into Aquarius?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like
I missed the first part of what you said. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I was saying, do you notice any trends you might predict as this kind of breaks through? Like what do you feel the square it's making to Capricorn is going to challenge that specific gen?
I'm not sure. It will be interesting. It will be interesting to see.
Because it's all happening now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what I'm trying to think of, like what I've been on the cusp of noticing is shifting and adjusting. I mean, anything going into Aquarius, it's kind of like a grab bag of let's just expand it whatever way we can. So I don't even know. I wouldn't even know what prediction I have towards it, except that I feel whatever limitations are being released will be replaced by thought processes that are more egalitarian, that are more leaving room and space for everyone and also everything. I think that's probably where it's going to manifest. The idea of coming out of a value judgment system, which can happen very much with Capricorn, into this space of, well, why do we have to say that any of these influences wrong? Is there something in me that I've labeled as bad that actually has a lot of validity and maybe is expressing itself in a strange way, but is not bad? So I think that may be what's going is value judgments, especially with the self.
No, that's I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah, especially with the South note there, which adds a whole nother flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what inspired you to walk this path you're on, and how did you create Genuine Transformation?
Yeah, interesting stuff. So I'm kind of a multi-potentialite. I've always had tons of things that I can do for work and that I'm good at. A lot of them have taken a technical expression. I used to be an aviation engineer. I was in the Navy for a long time. And there was always this pressure, self, but also from others, to be a leader, be a CEO, start a company, do all of these things. And I had done so pretty well over, over the last period of 11, 12 years, mostly as a freelancer. And then I finally started a technology company a few years ago, right before I got pregnant with Alex. And my soul died, essentially. It just dried up and died. I blame some of it on my business partner, but to be honest, I kind of ran it into the ground also. And then I had a very difficult pregnancy. So it forced me to walk the other way and leave everything. I had already been engaging in these types of practices, and even starting at a pretty young age with doing tarot readings. When I was in the Navy, there was nothing to do, so I would just do intuitive readings or tarot readings constantly, because there was no other entertainment. So it was like a revolving door, and it got to the point that I was, a really quick study with people. And then that would turn into counseling, which was nice. So this was always kind of like on the back burner. While I was pregnant with Alex too, something happens which is very annoying. Your brain suddenly stops functioning in the way that it needs to, because all of your body processes are focused on building another life. So they call this baby brain, and it's a thing. Wow. And for me, someone who's always been so identified with their capability, suddenly not being able to process basic logical problems or to program or to do anything, and on top of that, feeling disillusioned with my job, it forced me in the other direction where I could only function intuitively. It even got to the point that my eyesight failed at one point. Everything was very blurry. So it was being challenged by all of these different things. And some of it was from the pregnancy, but some of it was just life path stuff, to go the other way. Stop relying on your intelligence and rely on that intuitive intelligence that you've been building for years. So that, as soon as I made the decision to do that, doors opened up. I randomly found a space in the city that needed someone like me. They gave me the freedom and flexibility to just be there several days a week as the only person, which is rare in the intuitive sphere. And it just allowed my practice to shift and shape. And I had learned how to journey some years prior to that through my own healing. Maybe 8-9 years ago, I was going through some really, really difficult stuff. And at the very beginning of my own healing journey, I was seeing some native healers and just journeying into that process with them. And then I discovered, oh, I can do this as well. And they had prompted me in that direction and said, yeah, you can. And this is soul knowledge, and you need to use this. And, when the time's right, and if you feel ready, then you will. So that's essentially how it happened. A lot of events of allowing my ego to die, my brain literally failing me, and having this background, it just prompted me in the right direction. So yeah, that's how it happened. And yeah, so obviously you can see my background as a as a designer in in my site. That was the easiest part of the technological stuff. So the mobile version of that is awful, though. I'll give you credit. I was working on that this week. So yeah, that's how it happened. And the clients came. It wherever I needed to be, it just happened in that way. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really awesome. And it's I don't know why I never really thought about baby brain as like a thing. It makes sense.
Oh yeah, me either. Yeah, I'd heard of it. But
I think this is a testament to how powerful and strong women are, because they never really complain about it, or they never really. Yeah, I mean, I still see you all like work regardless, almost as if it's not a thing. So kudos to y'all. But
Yeah.
I will say I think it's amazing, being that your son, you have a 6th house Scorpio sun.
Mm-hmm.
One of the services you have is transformative habit cycle repatterning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which I feel like is probably, if there was anyone I would go to for that, I think you would probably be like the authority and expert.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So how does that work?
What did you say?
No, you were going to answer. I was going to ask you how that works. Like,
yeah, absolutely. So this is based, and I actually kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. This is based on the simple premise that I have that we're not crazy. Generally, there's a bent towards wanting to function and be healthy and be valid and have a voice in the world. And oftentimes we find ourselves in spaces where we'll not listen to some basic urge that we have, which actually has some validity in it, but we'll shut this down and say, all right, no, there's no space for you here. There's no space for you here. And it's like you keep shutting off this one part of you and not allowing it to have its proper expression. It starts to become feral. It starts to become loud and insistent. And not only does it not grow emotionally because we've shut that down, for some people it's being heard, or there's so many different varieties of this that I can do. Being able to have an emotional expression, that's big for a lot of people. So if you shut this down constantly, it will turn into this big, almost monstrous drive that then comes up in some inappropriate form, trying to tell us something in the only way that it can, which is through symbolism and behavior, and in a overexpressed way. So sometimes things like a need for safety or a need for solace can manifest as habits like, even like smoking and drinking. A lot of times, wanting to have space or solace or room or separation from the bad feelings that are going on. Now, the thing is, like, it unfortunately creates a worse scenario because it's awareness that you kind of need underneath that. But if you work with what has become feral first, and you don't even focus on the behavior. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand when they first come to me for this type of thing. I'm like, all right, we're not going to talk about it this week. They're like, what? No, we're not going to talk about how many times you engaged in this behavior this week. That's not what this week is about. It might not be what next week is about. We might not get to it for 2 or 3 weeks, because what I'm trying to find out is what underneath it, what drive, which was valid, has become so ill-expressed because it was not tended to and it wasn't fed. So looking at that, finding other ways and other situations that you can use to engage that drive and to bring that component up in your life, you naturally start to move away from whatever habit it was that you were engaged in. So I feel like if you look to your resistances and you look to kind of your bad habits or your repetitive patterns, you'll find real needs underneath it that you can express in a good way.
I'm a late Taurus rising, like 27 degrees. So a lot of my 6th house is Scorpio. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely been having to confront like toxic behavior within myself. And mm-hmm. it's definitely freeing to break through. That I'm really fascinated with the Scorpio sun energy, because I could imagine you can see this like directly. Mm-hmm. Just unconscious behaviors in people where it might be easier for people to just hide it. So thank you for being able to share your gifts. Like, so I really
absolutely
pretty amazing.
It's actually funny. I was at dinner a few nights ago, and a friend of mine had asked me how I view people. And I said, and it's not from a space of judgment at all, but I view people by their conflicts, just quite clearly. That's how I see them. It's such a quick picture. It's such a snapshot and summation of someone's values versus their kind of their traumas, and where those intersect are in these conflicts. And so you can actually get such a sense of someone in that by seeing, all right, here's the mode. This is the part that wants its natural expression. here are some of the other things and maybe some of the traumatic issues or just even stubbornnesses that have come in and it's creating this. So yeah, and it's not with a sense of judgment at all. You know, it's we all have them. It's how we grow. So yeah.
And so anyone can really approach you with this service too, whether they're going through it or not. Just
Absolutely.
A way to kind of like tap into where they're at right now.
Yeah, yeah, and they don't need to do anything either, especially in using the shamanic practices that I do. They'll sit there. I'll go into a half trance, and I'll put them in a little guided meditation just for their own peace of mind. And usually it provides kind of a sense of relief for them. But I'll go into a sort of half trance and I'll see these issues. I'll see things that look demonic or look feral or look aggressive that are not, that actually have some validity underneath them. I'll also see traumas that happened at various ages. So I'll see this individual at, 6, 8, 12, 27, whatever it is. And sometimes they'll just outright tell me what was going on. And it's profound with someone that I don't have any experience with before, who maybe I've only talked to for 2 minutes prior to a session. But that's, it's good getting that snapshot and seeing that. Sometimes there are parts that have to be reintegrated, and sometimes there are parts that have to be alleviated and talked through. But I always share this with the individual, and it helps them get clarity too. And a lot of times self-forgiveness is a huge part of the work. Just self-forgiveness, self-acceptance. And we judge ourselves in this moment now for having anxiety. We don't judge ourselves at 4 years old having anxiety. And so trying to view the self at those points that this occurred can create such a profound acceptance. Because that's the thing. Like, if it was a little guy like this, and you're seeing yourself at that age, you're not going to say, oh my God, why did you not have the skills to figure it out and stand up for yourself? It's not even a question. So yeah, a lot of times we forget that we did the best that we could with what we had available at any given time, and we're still judging ourselves very harshly for that.
True.
So yeah,
what I value your energy. I'm gonna have Sagittarius.
Alex, please be quiet for a second. I can't hear me. What did you say?
I'm going to assume you have Uranus and Neptune in Sagittarius in your 7th?
I believe so. I think it's in my 7th or my 8th. Oh, no, I have... Wait a second. Hold on a second.
Neptune's in Capricorn.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Neptune's in Capricorn.
Oh, no.
Uranus, I think, is actually still in my 6th. Let me check. Hold on. I should know this. Yeah, because it's opposition Chiron in my 12th. I know that, Uranus.
Okay.
So I think it's still, no, it must be in Sag. Yeah, it's in Sag. Okay.
Uranus is in Sag, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say those are, Rachel said it's really glad to have a New Age shaman on a peace talk, but those are definitely great indicators that I would see that would let me know you're well more than equipped to do this work. There's just so much more. It looks like you're definitely able to get to the root core of an issue and really help people, which is important because there are a lot of people who feel like they're good at doing this work, but they only really touch the surface and kind of almost frustrates us. So it's very refreshing to see and meet someone genuine like you that can do this. And
thanks.
Yeah, no, definitely. And on top of that, you have tarot services as well, which is dope. I was going to ask how long you've been reading, but you've mentioned that already.
Yeah, long time. I think since I was maybe 18. So, and I'm, so it was a long time ago. We'll say that. It's all good. This is a lie. I'm in my late 30s, so yeah.
The Gemini rising is good.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's amazing. What's your favorite part about reading tarot?
Mostly just that it gives the person across from me somewhere to focus. Really, it's that. It's the imagery. Now, like, symbols are the only way that our psyche, our deep psyche, has to communicate with us.
Okay.
Hence dreaming. That's why dreaming has such weird, strange imagery, because that's how this this part of us that is pre-language, it can bring up information to us in that manner. So with tarot, it's basically like dream imagery. These are all just archetypal symbols that you'll see as part of a journey. These are common themes that everyone knows about. So if I actually lay something out on the table, I'm telling a story to them. Using these symbols, they can look at it, focus on it, and immediately they relate to it. It's very interesting. Sometimes if they're just sitting across from me, they're so creeped out that they'll miss half of what's there.
Yeah.
But this gives us actually something to focus on and be able to like visually relate a story that they remember, and they'll remember it forever. It's funny. I have I have tons of clients. I have thousands of clients actually, and they'll record sessions, which is great, and listen to it before they come in again. But they'll remember what cards came out. They'll remember these signs, and they'll go, oh, this, and this. I always see those. Over the last 5 years, I always see those three, and I remember that this is what it means. So it's great because they're able to latch onto that and the meaning and understand the story behind it. Oh, I still have this resistance, which is actually guarding my creativity, and that's a valid thing, and it reminds them. So yeah, that's actually what I like about it, is it gives everybody somewhere to focus. So
I think it's awesome we get to apply such an art in a clinical way.
Yes.
That kind of really helps people therapy wise. And
absolutely.
This is what brings me to the soul retrieval part and integration. Could you explain that process and who would benefit the most from a service like that?
Absolutely. So a little bit of what I was talking about earlier with going in a shamanic journey touched on that. And it's essentially a painless process. I go in, I see the self at various ages, but there's also a dialogue that occurs. Now, what's actually going on in this is not just me retrieving information from someone, but it's a kind of psyche to psyche communication with a part of them that they have locked away due to trauma. And this happens to us all the time. It's dissociation. There's many, many times in our lives that we go through a circumstance and we will guard some little part of ourselves, sometimes a substantial big part of ourselves, but we'll put that away and go, there's no space for that. Let me put this aside until I feel like I can have this voice or I can have this expression. The problem is it's so easy to forget. We move out of this space, we guard it, we hide it somewhere in plain sight and then never find it again. So it's in this process, again, the other individuals, sometimes depending on their level of really kind of desire and ability to come into the dark space, I'll actually bring them into the journey and they'll see a lot of what I'm seeing. I don't do that with everyone because it can be jarring and I don't want to re-traumatize someone to their experience. But for the most part, they'll kind of just be sitting there in a different space or kind of in a field or some kind of scenery that I've created. But I'll have this dialogue and actually attempt to grasp this part of the psyche to bring it forward and bring it into the forefront and reintegrate it into the person. And something energetic happens during this time too. It's not just an internal thing. They often can feel it, the impact, whether I tell them what happened or not, because I do have some clients that say, I don't really want to know what's going on. I don't necessarily believe in this stuff, but a friend, came to you and they said that it helps. So it's interesting when that happens and to hear the same results. In the days following and the weeks following, there is a marked difference in what's going on with them. They'll have very vivid dreams, usually from that time. They'll feel oftentimes, especially if it's a child part, which has a lot of vitality to it. Those parts are intensely vital. They will move through some of the emotions that they had repressed, but in a way that they can handle, in a way that's tangible. And sometimes they'll get a sort of like childlike urge or an urge to express themselves creatively or whatever it was that was locked away. They'll sort of swing the other direction with it. And it's interesting because it even happens with folks that you don't tell them necessarily what's going on. And then they'll call and say, hey, is this normal? Wow. I'm saying no all the time. What's up with that? I'm like, oh, that's just right for you right now.
Speaking of
pardon?
taking their power back.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the whole point, is accessing parts of our vitality that we've locked away. And yeah, it's incredible stuff, you know. And that's the thing, is as far as who can benefit from it. I mean, pretty much everyone has experienced some form of soul loss, so to speak, some form of dissociation at one point in their life or another. Usually it's marked by a feeling of not knowing who we are anymore. And I think this happens to us a lot, that we just get to this point that we feel like we're less and less of ourselves. I'm a shadow of myself. You hear people say this all the time. I'm a shell of myself. I don't know what happened. I used to be this way and have this dynamic to me, and now it's just gone and missing. When I try to access it, it feels like there's a blank space. So especially for individuals that are feeling that way at a specific point in their life, that's a good time to approach soul retrieval, because yeah, you probably are missing part of yourself, and it's just been hidden really, really deep down underneath, and you need to be able to reaccess it. That's
beautiful. Knowing that your Neptune is on your moon definitely adds a lot of power to, I would say, that process. I noticed people, myself included, like we could just pick up on soul tendencies and aspects people have without even knowing. I know as my son, so with you as a Scorpio son, totally more powerful, which is very amazing, very amazing. And you know, I noticed you said Chiron is in the 12th.
Yeah.
Which I've come to believe gives one a mastery of Reiki healing.
Oh yeah.
You offer that too. So
could you
describe your Reiki journey? Like, how did you get started in that? And
Alex, go over there, honey. It stopped working. Okay. I know, Levy. I know. Oh my gosh, the phone died, so it's a travesty here. All right, go get the charger out of my room, okay? Yeah. No, we're doing something here, Levy. Okay. Yes, I love you. So with that, it's actually not traditional Reiki. I use the terminology, but I usually will let people know it's not specific. Sorry, it's not the specific Reiki system. Even all right, Bubba, here, can you go over there, please? Go watch it in my room, okay? Go watch on the TV in my room, okay? All right. Yeah, he's gonna have a little tantrum. That's fine. So with energy work, it's something that I've always done. And I didn't know why or what it was that I was doing. But if I touched people, I could feel what was going on inside. And I knew that I was always able to bring energy into them. It just felt like it would flow through me very naturally. I knew that it wasn't my own energy. But also something that's important about what I do is I remove a lot of things. And that was where I first noticed, was that more so even than giving healing and giving energy to someone, there was an ability to kind of grasp and pull things that just have been stuck. It's not bad, you know, it's not negative, so to speak. There's no such thing as negative energy. That's, you know, physics, as per physics, is impossible. But but anyway, just being able to like find and remove blockages and areas where it just feels like it's stuck in order to allow other things to pass through. Okay, my lovey. Yes. Puppies? Yeah, they're in her room. Go get them. Yeah, they're in the room. It's all right. They're not going to come out. Yeah.
That's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, he's good. He's over there now. So I hope you got some of that. I apologize. We had a little.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be right back if I can. Let me just get him settled in the other room. I'll be right back. All right, they're not going to bother you, okay?
For those who didn't catch her sun, moon, and rising, she's a Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, and a Gemini rising. And her sun is an Aquarius sun and moon. So I think it's really interesting. We had a cameo in the top.
All right.
Really cool.
He's playing with the puppies and now he's great. So
nice. So but to reemphasize, you're saying the Reiki you do is not traditional.
It's not traditional. I can't remember the term for it. It's not traditional Japanese Reiki. Okay. What it is, is, I mean, it's energy work. It's there. I actually went, I have a number of friends that are Reiki instructors, and I had asked them, I was like, well, can we do like an attunement and can we do everything so that I'm certified in it? And they just kind of laughed at me. They're like, you've been doing energy work on me for a couple of years. How about you be comfortable with the fact that this is just something that's in you? So that's,
so you didn't have to have any like official certification?
I didn't have any. Yeah, I didn't. And when I asked for it, I was refused because they were like, "You're already doing it." Yeah. So that was the thing that interesting that you were talking about. Chiron in the 12th house, because that was what would come up. They say you've clearly been doing this for many lifetimes, so just trust your instinct with it. Yeah. So I was like, all right, fine, I'm cool with that. So yeah, my Chiron's retrograde in the 12th house as well.
I find that certain people could be a bit insecure without the certification, but I'm a huge believer that it's in you. It's something that you've always said. So that's really awesome. And I love how you said that you don't see it as negative energy. You just kind of shift. That's amazing.
Yeah, sometimes there's stuff where it's blocked. It feels, and it looks like I see it. It looks kind of stagnant or gray or lumpy or, something of that nature. Sometimes there are little energetic structures that don't belong that are kind of in there. But this is also, this particular type of energy work is normal in shamanism. And I have been actually legitimately trained in a couple of different traditions. In the Lakota tradition, which is amazing, and spent a lot of time on Pine Ridge Reservation and in sweat lodges with these amazing octogenarian women. It's phenomenal. But I'm also trained in the Tibetan tradition, which came through Tibetan Buddhism. So that was very interesting as well to see the similarities between those. So yeah, and the Tibetan tradition, shamanic tradition, was originally, it predates Buddhism in the area, and was adapted into it because there was a woman at one point that came to the leaders when the religious systems were kind of being co-opted and moved out of the way, because this is from the original like Bon tradition. And she said, I need you to study these and tell me it's not valid. And they looked at it and they said, oh, you're right. It's valid. It belongs. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. Her name was Mashik Labdron. She was a shamaness. Yeah. So that's cool stuff, but it's a normal part of that it's like, well, yeah, put your hands inside someone's energy body, pull out what needs to be pulled out, add what needs to be added.
And it definitely also helps like heal physical ailments too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember my first Reiki experience where I had been doing Reiki before, but I didn't really take it seriously until I had to actually, heal myself, I'd say, of a stuffy nose. And I didn't have access to antibiotics until later. And I put a quartz crystal on my nose and it was cured. I never had to even use antibiotics. Couldn't believe it. So that definitely re-sparked my respect for that. And, how do you tie in Reiki to the awareness of other entities and the removal of those blocks?
Sure, I will be right back. He locked himself in the room. I will 1 second. I love you. Yes, sweetheart. Hi. All right. And try not to close all the way in, okay? So that way you won't get stuck.
There we go.
Life with a 3-year-old is interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting topic as well. Again, I come from a very, and especially through the Tibetan lineage, non-judgmental space towards entities. Oftentimes, like anyone and anything, we're all trying to get to a good expression. We can become nasty, we can become ill-expressed, sometimes over a period of lifetimes. And so trying to work with these beings with a sense of compassion, but still strictness with, all right, you don't belong here, but I'm also not going to send you to a hell realm because that's not my job. That's not what I'm meant to do. I'll remove you and I might put you into a different space where maybe you can't harm. And then there's also a different specific practice intending to those beings to get them to a better space so that they don't repeat the behavior. But that's taking it to it's a much more intense level. But as far as energy work, yeah, you become aware of it. You see it right away. Oh, this is inhabiting here. And especially linked to illness and physical injury, things tend to connect and sit and ruminate and essentially feed off of individuals. So again, it's yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Joe said, "I feel she is attuning me currently. My chakras are heating up." Would you feel like some people may indirectly react to your energy? Like so?
It happens all the time. So I'm honored. I'll say that. I'm honored if you're feeling that. That's good, and that's part of my that's part of my path. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing too with clients that I have. It's sort of an indirect effect of they'll tell me, oh, I wanted to call and talk to you. And as soon as I'm sitting and talking with you, now I feel like I'm calmer and everything's fine. I don't even know if I need to talk about the issue. I'm like, all right, well, that's great.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. So just trying to get them to that space on their own, but that's good.
And if anything, there was a common parable or story in the New Testament that I didn't really get into.
Are you there? You just blanked out for a second.
Was about Jesus.
Oh, you said common parable and story that I heard, and then I didn't hear the rest.
Oh, it's a common story in the Bible in the New Testament that I didn't get until recently.
Oh yeah.
About Jesus casting out legion from this dude.
Exactly. Into the pigs. Yeah.
And it's like they specifically asked, please don't put us in this specific realm. And I didn't get that meant anything, but like even he instead put him to the pigs, and that's what made me realize, okay, there's different dimensions you can cast people away, and all fascinating, all very fast. And once again, like I feel like that's the realm of Scorpio, like being aware of these different like worlds and whatnot. So that's very amazing. I feel like the ability to even be aware of such entities, you have to have like a Scorpio sun or a Sagittarius sun. So really, really honored that you're sharing these insights with us, especially in the time and age where a lot of people's unconscious, energy are starting to manifest a lot more and have to be dealt with quite accordingly. So yeah. It's great to know, you offer these services, Reiki, soul integration, repatterning. For those interested, I know someone said they needed reading. Definitely hit her up. I do have the link in the description box below. Now we can play the 3 questions game.
Sure.
Just take turn asking each other questions. They could be about anything. And yeah, you can start first. I'll answer and then I'll ask you. And
sure. All right, awesome. So I'm just going to go for it here because why not, being a Scorpio. So what have you found is the most persistent kind of like personal issue that you've had? And it could be something small, sometimes we have that thing where we just keep coming up and we're like, there's that damn pebble in my shoe. Yeah. What do you feel is like been kind of your pebble?
I think it has to do slightly with addiction. The pebble for me is waking up early. Like not even just waking up early, just getting out of bed. Because and then that's really because I sleep so late. So I've just been wanting to get that cycle right. And I just have to destroy some patterns. And just the motivation to, I guess, push myself past when things get hard and like take myself past my limits. I think that's part of the pebble too. Like I definitely don't take certain things as seriously as I can, but yeah, I would say just getting up in the morning and going to sleep early on time instead of like spending so much time on the internet or, smoking marijuana or which isn't so bad, but the moderation, which may be lacking, should definitely be there. So that's a really good question. I feel like that's such a great question too, because I'm finally in a position, especially over this past weekend, to like take that pebble out, really deal with that pebble, and step into, and that's another thing. I think I've been so used to, being stuck in that now that I have the opportunity to step into this new world of discipline, it's like, what do I do? There's so much to do. So
absolutely.
I guess it's just embracing that and really deciding once and for all to step into my power. So yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks for your vulnerability in answering that too. It's I have an unfortunate habit of just going there, but it's good.
It totally helps.
And also for folks, folks like us and those that are watching that are on this journey, it's collaborative, I think, too, in knowing that we have, and we might think, oh my God, no one else suffers with this. I shouldn't be suffering with this. And then we find out everyone's like, oh my God, me too. And just, it's good. It's a nice collaborative way of like getting accountability, but also having compassion for self and others in it too.
Yeah, no, definitely. If anything, want to make sure I didn't forget, because when you triggered it when you said everyone else is going through it too, or that type of energy. I know one thing that I felt I was going through alone for a while was like having this form of like mental Tourette's, where like I have to block my thoughts because I feel like I'm having to hold back negative thoughts that I don't even identify with mine, but I feel other people can hear, and it just kind of blocks me. It's like I'm having to fight an internal battle while focusing on connecting with other people, and it just makes experience. I think now it's not as bad, but also this Venus in the 12th feeling of like letting go of attachments. So that's something I didn't know that other people go through too. When I realized I wasn't the only one, I was like, wow, definitely helped me put things in a bit of perspective. My question for you is, what's your favorite thing about having your moon in the 8th house?
Oh gosh. It's well, I have an interesting relationship with the moon in general, and with my moon, but
what degree is
it? Oh gosh, I'm not even sure. Hold on, let me check. Let's see. I got it right here. 19.
Oh,
yeah, 19 degrees. Yeah.
Right next to Saturn.
What'd you say?
Saturn is right on it right now.
Oh yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, probably just that ability to, I don't know if this makes any sense, to understand that what I feel and what I see, and even like my dark fears and my deep, kind of influences are in others as well. There's an interesting like interchange that I have with it. And I often find an adaptability where if I'm going through something and I'm just in that space of like, oh God, why is this happening to me? Yeah. I almost immediately can find where it's valid in someone else's life, where I don't have to search for it. It always comes up seamlessly, and creating this sense of like, all right, we feel the same thing. We're going through this thing as well. So I don't know if that quite answers it, but it's that sort of like collaboration of it, not just being this deep internal thing, which is very easy for me to go to, but being like, let's shoot this out somewhere else, kind of having that Sagittarian Archer, like, let's just go there. Let's, or I'm sorry, no, it's Capricorn. But it still has that same kind of like directness to it of like, let's find something, let's fix it, let's like go there with it.
Plus it's next to Sagittarius, so you're definitely right in mentioning it. It definitely would bring that, and the influence of Neptune especially, I would definitely feel adds to the blended quality of feeling it too, which it's not easy to have, but totally OJC said that was a beautiful 8th house moon interpretation, the mirror energy. So definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's like you draw it in and then you reflect it back with the Gemini rising, which is very accurate. So now I would say we're on round 2.
Sure. What is your, we'll say, kind of your favorite part of your astrological makeup? What do you feel gives you the most like lift and buoyancy? What's kind of like your lucky star? Not necessarily your Pars Fortuna, but like what's your kind of like your favorite?
That's such a good question. For so long,
it's a hard question, right?
it's a good one though. For so long, it used to be my Gemini sun. I think I definitely like Jupiter. I really like Jupiter so close to my 3rd because it gives me a golden attitude. I've noticed that with my Gemini, like no matter how bad things get, I can always have an empowering attitude about it. I can definitely always look at things in just the right way. But now I'm coming to think that my favorite aspect is Mercury that's right on my rising, trine my moon on Saturn in Capricorn. I'm now kind of growing into my Saturn return. I'm realizing it's definitely been like a very paternal influence to set me straight. And it's really what's going to help me tap into my power. It's just I'm transitioning to becoming more in my body and harnessing a lot more. Still a mystery to me, but definitely interesting. Yeah.
Yes, Lovey, come on here. Come on out. I'm right here.
You know what? My next question for you actually has to do with your son. I was going to ask, what have you found? What have you noticed about him and his psychic abilities at his age? And more so, my real question is, what advice do you have for parents when it comes to fostering their spiritual gifts and bringing out your children's latent abilities?
Yeah, well, I will say it's so noticeable with young children because they just live in that space. It's no, these are my abilities, these are my psychic abilities. It's just there because they're in this wonderful space. Come on, sweetheart. I'm right here. Are you afraid of the doggies? Don't worry, just come on up.
I find encourage children to be young geniuses too.
Yeah. It's like there's no in between because they're in this space of complete perception. It's part of what's happening. They're forming their ideas about the world. So they're perceiving everything on this fresh level, oftentimes with very little judgment on it. And that's an interesting point. And even with intuition, we can shut down our own intuition through putting this judgment on it. Not only of a judgment of, oh, this is a bad, wrong thing, or it doesn't belong because of our, religious ideals or whatever it is that's there, but any kind of prejudgment takes us out of the space of being present in that moment and into a space of deciding what we have to say about it. So that actually leads me to the next part of the question. What can parents do to foster those abilities in their kids? Create a space for them to just perceive. Create, an impetus for them to explore and not think about what it means for them just yet, but to just be there and be in that perception space. And also, I will tell you, it's good to periodically take them aside and say, you know what, hey, sometimes you might feel something and you might not know why you're feeling it, but it's probably pretty valid and good, so you should listen to that. Or letting them know sometimes you might see things that don't make sense or that you think are not visible. And, there's a part of you that kind of sees that. Or you may have dreams that maybe happen a few days later or that mean something to you. And that's okay. So giving them that little kind of pull aside. My great grandmother did that at one point. She pulled me aside. I think I was like 6. And she was like, hey, you might have dreams that are really meaningful and interesting. And sometimes they might happen and that's okay. Like we don't really talk about it that much in our family, but it's normal. And that there kept me from shutting it down. Kids are at a risk of shutting down. And I see this in my practice all the time. I hear the same 2 stories around the time that they're 4 or 5, because that's when they start functioning in the world, in societal ideals of like what's right. It's around the time that kids start understanding if there's a religious construct that prohibits, or if there's a social construct that prohibits.
Okay.
And then again in puberty. Puberty, there's going to be this intense shift, and it all comes up, and it gets very powerful and very potent. And especially if a young person feels alone during that time, or it's like they can't speak about it, or like it's not normal, they're going to shut that whole influence down. And I hear from people all the time that go, I had these gifts right up until the time that I was 11, 12, 13, and it scared me, and I wanted it to go away, and I asked for it to go away, and I've never gotten it back. Yeah. The good news is we then work to bring it back. So so it can happen. But those are the 2 points. So if you have kids, be especially conscious around that time when they're entering the social sphere, and then again during puberty when they're going to have a natural expansion. And it would be a slow retrieval. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the ways. Sometimes too, they've been, their intuition didn't go anywhere, but they've just been explaining it away. So sometimes we just have to have a little conversation of, you can choose to explain everything away, or you can just allow it to be and, stop stop saying that it's not happening. So, but yeah, soul retrieval can definitely help in those circumstances. Especially if there was a trauma around that time, or a very loaded circumstance in their life, that they shut it away because it wasn't safe, then yes. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Nice. And we're on the final round. All right. Let's see. All right. Since you're on your 99th episode, and I feel like that's so symbolic and potent, and I'm so honored to be a part of this. How has your experience, even as a healer, because you are a healer, shifted and grown through this practice from the beginning, like maybe some of the expectations that you had then to like the expectations and experiences you've had now? Like has there been anything phenomenal that has come up or shifted or grown that was unexpected? Yeah, I would say I've grown from feeling the need to prove what I can do to accepting that I'm here to hold space for certain people. And like putting in the work and really connecting with people who have opened up about my influence and how I've really helped. And it was really humbling because I think with the powers I have, like I've been so unaware. Like I'm so busy just kind of experiencing. I really don't know the influence that I have. So hearing that not only humbles me and helps me take it more seriously, but it definitely gives great perspective of my role in it. Yeah. Whereas before I was just kind of getting in there and feeling like, oh, I have to prove to the world astrology is real, and like, this is what we're meant to do, versus now where I've realized I'm here to wait for the invitation. Not everyone's going to be ready for this path, but the ones that are, I'm here to serve. I'm definitely here to help. And it's definitely helped empower and simultaneously humble me. So I'm definitely really grateful because once again, like I think I'm barely coming into really being more aware of what I do. So it definitely, I'm grateful for, people who have opened up with their experiences and helped me gain that context. Definitely very honored to do this work. And yeah, I think I want to embrace more the healing aspect too, and to get more into Reiki myself and to share that. So thank you once again for asking. It's very great. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing it. And my last question for you is the hot seat question. What are your 3 favorite zodiac signs and the 3 zodiac sign energies that give you the most challenge? All right, let's see. My 3 favorites. Well, I love Aquarians because like me. They're just freaking weird, and they love it and they get with it. But but they're weird in this just wonderful, like, expansive way. You know, whenever you talk to them, they're like, "Yes, let's explore this idea. Absolutely, let's break down this construct of self or identity and like see where we can go with it." And I love that, just endless talking. So my very best friends, most of them are Aquarians, and we just talk constantly. I'm lucky to have an Aquarian son. So I love them. I love Sagittarians also. I refer to them as the zodiac. The grab bag of the zodiac.
Yeah,
because
true.
Every single one of them is a completely different party in a bag, basically. And again, there's an optimism and like an endless of like outward drive towards just anything. You know, let's see where it goes. Let's see where it goes. And I love it again. And I am buoyed off of the energy. I also, which will seem probably pretty strange to most people. I love Capricorns. And having my moon in Capricorn, I understand the challenge of that, but there's so much that I can appreciate about that bent towards work and expression and I don't want to say perfectionism, and it can take a perfectionistic form, but towards anything worth doing is worth doing right and well and to its best extent. And that kind of drive, I just really admire it in people, because when I see them turn their attentions to issues that are inside of them, I have zero doubt that they will maneuver through whatever they need to, and they'll come out the other side of it. You know, maybe a little bit grizzled, but they will. So I admire that. My mom's a Capricorn, and I also kind of like the wet blanket part in some senses, because it's funny where they're just like, no fads, no, not doing fads. So it's fun. Yeah, they're just like, no, not for me. Find my own way.
Yeah.
The ones that I have the most difficulty with, Leos. I have difficulty with Leos. Not all of them. I find that there's of two varieties. There's lions and there's house cats, and I can kind of get with the house cats. Yeah. But I have difficulty with it because sometimes there's...
You said you get along with the house cat?
I get along with the house cat. Yeah. A lot of times there's a little more repression there. So it's easier for them to, like, they're approaching ego almost from the different end of it. So they're not as like hardcore about preserving their image or like the appearance of something. They're just more like, all right, well, this is happening and it's uncomfortable and maybe I don't like it, but there isn't that big ego thing going on with a lot of Leos. And this is not everybody too. I'm going to feel bad, like throwing any sign under the bus, because most of the work that I do is very Pluto oriented. It's about getting under the surface of that stuff. The very first thing that I'm going to challenge is that surface level. So it's hard because I have great clients that are Leos, but it's hard because we have to go so hard at that. And I feel bad for them because it can be such a challenge to like relinquish those ideas about who you are, and just like let yourself be there and be present. Libras, I have a hard time with too, because I'm like, just make up your goddamn mind. Like, just stop being so shallow about everything. Oh my God. Like, can we please, you know? Oh, God. And I get it, you know, and any of the dual signs have that kind of thing going on, you know, Pisces and Gemini and Librans, they all have that difficulty there, but I can find that difficult. And let's see, what else? I think honestly, those are my only two that I really have difficulty with.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean Gemini sometimes, you know.
Moon clashes with Libra, and then the sun clashes with Leo, I would think.
Yeah, probably. And it's interesting too because I have so many planets in Libra, but it's funny. Maybe that's why.
All the hardcore change planets, Saturn and Pluto, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just like, because I want to get underneath the surface, I'm like, leave these ideas that you have about everything being like kind of wishy-washy or balance. Like, let's get away from that and go down to what you really feel. I think that's the hardest part with Librans. They don't know sometimes what they really feel about something.
True. Or they put on a front of being objective so they don't have to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I can relate, you know, it's, I can kind of relate, but yeah, those are the only, I think, ones that I have a little difficulty with.
Interesting. Well, people are very happy Virgo's not on the list. Normally, Virgo.
I love Virgos. Yeah, I do. I don't really. Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible problem. It's
yeah. If you like Capricorn, you'll like Virgo.
I think it's that, you know, like Virgos are sometimes a little bit fussy. They're a little bit perfectionistic, but you know, I have some of that going on for me too. So again, I can relate. And they're all right. Like Virgos, they just, at the end of the day, they just want to, they want everybody to be safe. Basically, they want to be safe. They want other people to kind of operate within reasonable spaces so that it's safe for all. And I can get with that. It's, yeah. I think sometimes they don't know that that's what they want, but they do.
Yeah. Yeah. You put it that way. They're like a more grounded Cancer.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, Cancer wants everyone to be safe and fed. Virgos are like, all right, let's be fulfilled and like let's be reasonable about this. So yeah, I get it.
Nice. You don't happen to have any cards on you, do you?
I do. I can grab some. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one second.
Cool. It was a request from House of Judea.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, by the way, for once again connecting us for this peace talk. Very, very grateful. So we'll pull a couple cards before we close out.
No, the bananas are the 8 bananas. I know. He's so sad we're out of chocolate covered bananas, but you know it happens.
That sounds really good too.
Yeah, they are. They're pretty awesome. Yeah. Alex, relax, please, Bubba.
I'm feeling we can pull just two, one for the masculine and one for the feminine.
Sure, absolutely.
Sweet.
Alex, you're fine, buddy. Come here. All right, let's see. Oh wow. All right, so we pulled some difficult ones here.
Okay.
And I have a slightly different interpretation than some people may have with tarot. So I'll just kind of warn you off on that. So so with the masculine, I pulled the 4 of coins, and I tend to interpret this as a card that is about possessiveness, but is also, in a positive sense, can be about necessary possessiveness. And looking at both the positive and negative aspects of what am I holding on to that I don't need to hold on to? What maybe am I kind of like guarding too harshly that I don't need to? But also looking at these aspects of going, all right, but what also does belong to me and is mine and is right for me to guard? So I feel the message here is look to what we're holding and to what we're guarding and also to what we're not. And see if you can recognize if there are any things in there that maybe you feel guilty about guarding or feel guilty about saying, no, this belongs to me. I don't want to share this. I don't want to have this outward expression of it because then I'm going to be in need. Because that's the thing with these cards are progressive. And from the 4 of coins, we go into the 5 of coins, which is about need. So sometimes in doing that, we can, and not holding back on what we need to hold back and reserve for ourselves, we can end up in that space of need. So that's it is also a draw to examine any roots of materialism that we might have and just be willing to like let those go.
I actually got exact card for the masculine too, the 4 of coins.
Oh wow, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think so I really have not much more to add. I think you nailed that. I think that's very much so, especially as masculine myself. I've definitely been working on, I think I am holding a lot in, especially my own masculinity. I've been realizing I've been deliberately not hiding, but like rebelling against the natural role in order to just come to myself. But now I'm having to integrate it and express it more. And I think you're manifesting a lot more stability as well, materially.
Sure. Just one second. I gotta attend to this guy. Hey, Bubba. Honey.
So I'm gonna do the feminine right now. And the feminine, I got the 3 of Cups. And the 3 of Cups is definitely talking about celebration. It's like 3 feminine figures right here. So I see this as like connecting with other such women, and whether they're men or women, people who have tapped into their divine feminine essence. And it's like you're celebrating the hard work it's taken to manifest this into fruition, which is awesome. But yeah, I think that's quite amazing. We're both Cap Moons, and we pulled the same Capricorn card for the masculine.
So yeah, we were exploring that. Do I really need a chocolate covered banana? Things out there. He didn't believe me. He thought I was lying, so he was pitching a tantrum. So don't worry, none of that was legitimate ouches or anything. That was just I want a chocolate covered banana, and I think mom's lying to me, kind of a thing. So
it happens.
Yeah. So anyway, for the feminine aspect, another difficult influence, which is the 10 of Swords.
Ooh.
And this also I relate in a way of, and I have a slightly different story about this. Rather than looking at it being in a place where things are going to turn bad or are going to turn to ruin, more looking at, sometimes we have these odd cycles where depletion hits us after the fact, and it's so confusing when it does. And this is a normal function of the psyche, that when we're going through a difficult situation, we're in this damage control mode. And sometimes even for an extended period of time, we're making things work, we're making things happen. Women tend to, who are mothers especially, tend to deal with this a lot, where you just kind of put on a brave face, you do what needs to be done. And then when a period of lesser activity comes, depletion can hit you, and it seems like it's out of the blue. And it's very easy to read it as a portent of doom, especially if you've made some kind of a big shift. Say you were in a difficult relationship and you left it, and you have a little rush for a minute, and then suddenly there's all of these bad feelings that have like walled up, that were walled up before, that are hitting you like a tidal wave. And it creates this sense of like, oh my God, did I make the right decision? And so I always see this as a point where people sometimes second guess themselves, because it doesn't feel good. I made this decision, but it doesn't feel good. Why doesn't it feel good? And it's moving through that and allowing ourselves to recognize that we're going to have to process out those feelings sometime. And it's actually a good sign that means that we're safe when we're doing it. So I have a feeling that message was very particularly for someone, because that's kind of a specialized interpretation that I have for this card. So if that's coming out, that was for somebody, and you know who you are.
Someone else said in Cancer, ruin but abundance, and I got the 3 of Cups for
nice.
It. So I resonate with that. It's like you have to process that in order to step into what to celebrate for it and what to kind of come into. So it was definitely very accurate for a lot of people. So it even made Divine Tribal Soul cry. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I guess in conclusion, how could people reach you? I have your website below, but could you once again, share what services you offer and how they can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm reachable a number of ways. Either via my website, I have a contact link on there at genuinetransformation.com. Also, and you can reach me at Arden at genuinetransformation.com. I'm on Instagram, Arden Ariel. I do have ardenariel.com, but it's not quite up yet, but it's just there if it's easier for you guys to remember. That's the sanitized version that doesn't have any of the new age lingo, but still has everything else that I offer. So if you want to compare those two sides, sometimes I have to market in that manner. And I'm always open to, direct contact. So if anyone was, touched or moved by this or has additional questions, reach out to me. I will contact you. It's I'm not I don't hide behind that. I like to speak and discuss things with people. And then just as far as the services that I offer, as we mentioned, I do I have tarot and intuitive services. I try to keep that focused on transitional cycles. That's usually where it's best expressed. Than it is like little situational things. It's more long range, kind of like long range planning. I do offer soul retrieval and other shamanic services to help the individual feel more whole and more well with themselves. And I also do a lot of traditional non-pathology based counseling. So I think of myself as a transitional coach also. I'm here to help during those shifts, during transformation, during transition cycles, especially if you just need a guide to help you seek more clearly with where you're going, identify maybe some of the stumbling patterns that you've had before so that you can get to where you're going with more clarity. So and there's tons of other stuff too. And I'm based in New York City area for in-person sessions. I have several different locations, and then I also do one-to-one video. So that's always available. Mm-hmm.
And do you have any final word of advice for people walking the spiritual path? Absolutely.
Get comfortable with your resistance. Look to where your resistances are. Stop demonizing it. Even your, sort of your demons and your difficulties and the things that you consider your failings, look beyond that. Stretch yourself to not judge that. And you will find that there's something valid underneath it. And that's usually the best place for you to start. If you're wondering, where do I go next? How do I expand next? Start working with that other part. Give yourself a chance to forgive yourself for being a human being. And look and see what's under that. That's my challenge.
Amen. Thank you so much once
again. You're welcome.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And you guys stay tuned. Next episode is 100. Right now, the moon is conjunct Mercury and Neptune 17 degrees.
Wow.
So make a wish, everyone. I guess that's a very intuitive decision we're having to make. So looking forward to how that manifests. And thank you once again, Arden, for joining us.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
All right. You all stay blessed and peace out.